Hey, guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris here with you with another show. We got some good stuff going today. We're talking about, much to my dad's chagrin, the Yankees rookies Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge. And we will begin this week with our picks for postseason awards, Rookie of the Year this week, and then we'll be looking into Cy Young, MVPs, and maybe some Silver Sluggers and Gold Gloves. So, Battle, let's put the ball in play and get it rolling, man. What do you say?
Sounds good to me. I think probably a good place to start. I don't know about you, but this is going to move right into our predictions. Let's talk about rookies in general, and more specifically, let's talk about some Yankees rookies. Gary Sanchez has been lighting the American League East on fire the last few weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I don't know. One of those things you don't really expect, when you come to the bigs. I mean, you want to have a nice, go at it. And, I mean, he's been on fire, man. For anyone living under a rock or, again, like my dad who hates the Yankees, rookie catcher called up who is off to the hottest hitting start of any player in baseball history. This past Monday, he was named AL Player of the Week, which is a great honor for a kid. But the question, if you have been watching, is why is he getting Player of the Week honors? And if I remember correctly, it's his second Player of the Week. So apparently, Major League Baseball figures that for some odd reason, if you manage to bat .522, all right, so go 12 for 23 with, 3 doubles, 5 homers, 5 walks, 9 ribbies, and you score 7 runs. He's the first player to hit 11 long balls in his first 23 games. That apparently that garners Player of the Week honors, and I'm not really sure I disagree. I know, obviously, being on the West Coast, you may not see as much of the Yankees as I do, especially with the Tampa Bay Rays being in my backyard and in the same division. But I mean, dude, what in the world is this kid doing off of the start?
Well, he's swinging the bat, and that's really where he's getting all of this recognition from, right? I mean, he's playing well. He's doing all of the things that you expect a young kid who wants to make an impression on the league to do in the field. But when he comes to the plate, he's trying to make history, and he is making history. The guy has 118 plate appearances, 105 recorded at bats. He's walked 12 times. He's only struck out 25 times in those 105 at bats, and 11 long balls, 9 doubles, 38 total hits. I mean, he's come across the plate 20 times. He sent another 21 across the plate. The kid is just burning fire. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. He has an OPS of 1.194. You talk about OPSs to be jealous of. That is a number that other hitters in the league are going, holy crap, man.
Yeah,
I mean, he's slugging 762, hitting 362.
The kid's raking the ball, but he's finding his way on base. And unlike the next guy we're going to talk about, his plate discipline has been fantastic. If you look at his at 95 plate appearances, first 95 plate appearances since he was recalled from AAA on August 3rd. Okay, he had a couple of games earlier in the year, an 0 for 4 on May 13th. This year, he had 2 games last year, went 0 for 3, 2 strikeouts. But since he was recalled this year, he had a .417 average, a .484 slugging, and a .905. 484 on base, 905 slugging, a 1.389 OPS. All right. If you added in those previous 3 games with his 0 for 7 total, that still put him at a 389 average and a 1.3 OPS. I mean, his hitting prowess is fantastic. We know that. We're seeing him in the box. But what's been more impressive is really his defensive abilities as well. And we know, I mean, catcher is often overlooked. I mean, there have not been, in recent history, I'd say maybe more than a half dozen catchers who really make you look and go, that is what the position is supposed to be. I know the first person that you're going to say if I ask you is going to be Buster Posey. I don't disagree. Okay, Pudge Rodriguez, Johnny Bench is probably one of the best of all time, but it's not a position that is regularly,
but we're talking about
this high praise.
But when you say names like that, you're talking about guys who won Rookie of the Year their first year in the league. So
exactly.
To be on a list like that is, especially for a kid who, based simply on the fact that he's only played 27 games this year, and we'll get into that later, probably isn't going to get that award.
Yeah.
But to be mentioned in the same breath as names like that is incredible for a guy who, this time 2 months ago was hitting in AAA.
Yeah. I mean, he's thrown 7 out of 12 bag thieves, one of the strongest arms behind the dish. He throws to second base an average of 87 miles per hour. The MLB average for catchers is between 77 to 82. So, I mean, he's reading the game well. He's reading situations well in the big leagues. You knew guys are going to test him, and they're still going to keep trying to test him. But even though he has an older pitching staff to work with, that's a good thing for him, because when you have veterans like Sabathia, you have guys like Tanaka who, yes, are relatively new to the majors but had a long career in Japan, like Ichiro, who we discussed last week. And appreciate you guys giving us a lot of good feedback on our social media, Out of Left Field on Facebook and at OO Left Field on Twitter. My next question to you is going to be, could these numbers make him a Rookie of the Year candidate? And you pretty much already answered that. And I'm with you. To me, it's just a premature argument. You can't do that this early in a player's career. He's starting off hot as fire, but so were guys like Jeff Francoeur, guys like Jason Hayward. And Hayward is still a solid player. He is someone who did well for the Cardinals, is doing good for the Cubs. But let's be honest, he is not the focal point of that offense. That's Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo. It was Matt Carpenter, Matt Holliday with St. Louis. I mean, we've seen the ebb and flow. I'm not so sure we're going to see ebb and flow in baseball. I don't think it's going to be quite as extensive or an egregious drop-off with Sanchez.
Right.
But we've seen guys who just can't – some guys just start off really well, and then pitchers adjust, and they realize this kid can't see the baseball. Jeff Francoeur is someone who comes to mind when Braves color announcer Joe Simpson speculated years ago that Francoeur just couldn't pick up the baseball. He was a guess hitter. And when he guessed lucky, that thing, shot off the barrel of his bat. But if he was off, he became a big liability up there in the box.
Yeah, I would like to caveat the Rookie of the Year thing with Gary Sanchez by saying that it's not impossible, because really at this point his only competition for that award is a pitcher. And again, we're going to get into that later, but realistically, if the people who vote for Rookie of the Year wanted to look solely at a guy who can hit and play his defensive position well, then Sanchez certainly tops that list, even in 27 games. And I'd like to point out that his 11 home runs actually came in a span of 15 games. He hit all 11 of those in 15 games. He didn't go deep into his first 7 games, so. But his fielding metrics are insane.
Yeah.
His exchange time is, little less than 0.8 of a second. His pop time, pop time is from the time that the ball hits the catcher's glove to the time that the ball hits the second baseman's glove. The amount of time that it requires the catcher to exchange, and throw on line to the second baseman to throw out a runner is called pop time. His pop time is 1.89 seconds. And the fastest pop time in the league at this point is JT Realmuto.
Okay.
And then Betancourt is second at 184 and 185.
And that's Realmuto, I believe, is the Marlins?
Yes.
Or at least was. Okay. So, yeah, for those of you guys who sit back and watch a guy get a great jump from first and wonder why in the world is he still getting thrown out with a great jump, well, when a fastball takes about 0.4 of a second from the mound to the catcher, and then a little bit less than a second and a half, that's 2 seconds from pitch to ball at second base, and usually roughly your best guy is getting a 4, maybe a little bit under a 4.5 on that 90-foot dash to first, maybe a little bit less than 90 because they have a lead. So, on a good throw, it's easy to get guys. But I'm with you, man. I mean, his ability behind the plate to call games for these veterans, he's seeing guys, he's putting throws online is great. My one worry, because he is a big power hitter, is going to be strikeouts. He had 20 strikeouts in his first 90 total at bats. The more that guys and the more that teams see him and work around him, what I'm concerned about is the more apt he's going to be to strike out more. That he's going to keep trying to come back to how he started, and you don't want to see him press. And if you begin to press, especially as a rookie, your hope is that you're going to have veterans in that clubhouse, and we know that some of the veterans have moved on and have left in trades. There's still going to be some guys there that can kind of help him reel that in a little bit. Now, one of those veterans would be catcher Brian McCann, but I think you and I both agree that, Gary Sanchez is the number one option at catcher at this point. And I think Brian McCann, even though there was concern and question about him being traded during this trade period that just ended a couple of months ago, and we know the Braves made a little bit of talk that maybe they wanted to sign him to kind of bring him back as, have a former Brave there to help open up the new SunTrust Park next year. I think definitely we're going to see Brian McCann moved this offseason. And I saw the eyebrows raised. And no, Chris, Tim Tebow will not be on the opening roster for the Braves next year for SunTrust Park.
No, I don't think he will. Although it'll be interesting to see what he does in possibly in the Braves minor league system, which is what everybody's saying is going to happen at this point. And we'll have more on that next week if something does, become solid. And, guys, if you want to get involved in this conversation about Gary Sanchez or any of the other conversations that we have, you can find us on Twitter at OOLeftField. Find us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Out of Left Field. Or you can email us, ooleftfield@gmail.com. And remember that Out of Left Field is a part of the Grueling Truth Network. And if you go to thegruelingtruth.net, you can find podcasts on everything from baseball to football, hockey, even the CFL. So that's thegruelingtruth.net, where legends speak.
And there's a lot of good stuff coming with football right now. Mike Goodpasser, the guy who's running the Grueling Truth, kind of our creator, our boss, doing a lot of good stuff, getting guys prepped with Super Bowl predictions and NFL previews. And if you're like Chris and I, and we have a fantasy draft coming up tonight, hey man, always keep looking, because we're going to have Os Davis, Matt Andrus-Scavage, Aaron Zepnick. They're going to be going through fantasy stuff every week on the Fantasy Football Preview Show. They'll let you know who your best picks are. So if you like listening to Matthew Berry on ESPN, but you want something a little bit more down to earth, close to home, check them out. So, Chris, as we kind of transition from, hot to cold, all right, so, if we just come off Gary Sanchez and the ball's in play, we know he probably knocked it out of the park.
Right.
Second batter's in the box is Aaron Judge, and I think we're going to be looking probably at a strikeout here. Talk about premature accolades, man. Judge started off on a tear. I mean, we were wanting to talk about him a couple of weeks ago, and things kind of kept compounding, between the Yasiel Puig stuff, who now Puig has been promoted back to the Dodgers after we told he wasn't going to be. I mean, that's crazy, and we'll touch on that in a few minutes. But
in a failed trade attempt, right, for Braun from Milwaukee.
Yeah. It ended up being that Milwaukee. Actually, you know what? Since we're on it, let's put Judge. We'll put him back in the on the on deck circle, and let's bring up Puig, man. So yeah.
Yeah, we don't want him to strike out prematurely.
Well, hey, we have Puig. It can still happen, but so Yasiel Puig was put on trade waivers and was claimed by an unnamed team. Okay, the original report that I had heard and I had seen corroborated was that the team that claimed him did so more in an attempt to block other teams from claiming him. But then it came out through Buster Olney and ESPN, Pedro Gomez, those guys, that the Brewers and the Dodgers actually tried to have legitimate trade discussions with Puig and Braun, which you and I thought would have made a lot of sense during the deadline to begin with, because Braun's been hitting well, but he's always going to have kind of that stigma. It's time for a new face. Get Puig out of Hollywood, and then nothing happened. And the Dodgers made it clear, you know what, we are not recalling him right now. Anything is possible, but right now we're going to leave him down there. And then what happened a couple days later? Hey, he's coming up.
They DFA'd him, right? Well, they DFA'd him. I mean, they designated him, put him on waivers, and then now when we talked about a possible Braun Puig trade during the trade deadline, I told you something, and like I said, I don't know the specifics. Nobody really knows the specifics about why this deal fell apart for the Dodgers and the Brewers, right? They couldn't come to some agreement. And chances are that agreement was the fact that Yasiel Puig makes a whole lot less money than Ryan Braun does. And Braun would go to L.A. still being owed the remainder of his, $24 million contract?
I'm not
for the year?
Let me take a look at that. I will. Let me get you that in just a minute, man. But yeah, I think there definitely would have had, pretty sure that Milwaukee would have had to eat part of that deal. Yeah, he has signed through. He has signed through 2020. He had a 5-year, $105 million contract total, and he's owed $19 million. Actually, I'm sorry, he's owed $20 million in 2017, $20 million in 18. $19 million in his age 35 season in 2019, and then it goes to $17 million. By age 37, there's a $15 million mutual option, team and player, with a $4 million buyout. So there's a lot of money still on the table. You're looking at, I mean, that's close to $65 million at least.
Right, and Yasiel Puig is making $5.5 million this year.
Yeah.
So you've got a difference of almost $15 million in salary per year that the Dodgers really aren't going to want to spend. I mean, nobody is going to want to pay a difference of $15 million a year for a right fielder who really is only going to be – his only plus is going to be the fact that he's a better presence in the clubhouse. I mean, Braun is still a good hitter. You can't take that away from him. He still plays well. He's still a great player. But
we know that the drug testing on him now is even more extensive than it was. So pretty safe to say at this point that he's playing clean. The stigma is always going to be there, but pretty safe to say that this has been a clean year. It's still been a very, very good year for him.
Yeah, he's hitting well. He's playing well, and he's the kind of guy that people don't mind being around in the clubhouse, whereas Yasiel Puig is probably the direct opposite of that. He has an attitude. Nobody really likes to be around him. But, I mean, Ryan Braun's hitting 308 this year.
And Puig addressed just what you said. Puig addressed that. He said, you know what? He said, I got way too comfortable with a bunch of people being here cheering me on. He said it was a slap in the face getting sent down. He said, but it was probably a good thing for me. So, I mean, he's saying the right things.
Right.
You know, I mean, I gotta believe. I mean, the Dodgers have the highest payroll by far, so spending money isn't a problem for Magic Johnson and those guys. But
no, yeah, absolutely not.
But you know, I don't know, man. It could have been a great move. It really could have been a great. I mean, you know, they're sitting 2.5 up, I think, or 3 up on the Giants. You know, you add that extra bat in there, you could use a little bit more depth in your outfield anyway. It would have been a nice move. I think right now, kind of like we said, they're hoping to catch that fire in a bottle that Puig has in Oklahoma City and take a 400 batting average in AAA, and let's bring that up again. Hopefully he's solid, but we're saving a ton of cash.
Exactly. And if you can transfer a 400 batting average in AAA and manage to make that a 300 batting average in the major leagues, then you've added a whole lot of pop to that lineup in September, heading into what looks to be at least somewhat of a race for the National League West title.
But I mean, I don't think nothing is going to be as good as the AL East. But yeah, I'm with you, and I think that another thing we had thought is that if he's hitting well and you can at least keep this production up, just like Brian McCann, it's a great possibility that there's going to be a lot of talk at the winter meetings about, hey, is Yasiel available? What do you guys want for him? How much do we have to eat for him? And
yeah, exactly.
He might still get moved.
Right. And I think Puig going back to the Dodgers is good for the Dodgers. I think that it's going to help them throughout the month of September.
Yeah.
But
I think it would have been a pride thing to not call him back up.
Yes, I think so too, and I think that probably would have been more cutting off their nose to spite their face than anything else. But let's talk about a guy who set Major League Baseball history only a few months ago, or less than a month ago. Came up and in his first at bat, hit a home run right after his teammate Tyler Austin hit a home run, which is the first time in Major League Baseball history that 2 rookies on the same team have hit home runs in their first Major League at-bats, which garnered Aaron Judge a whole lot of spectatorship. People were looking at this kid going, wow, I mean, he's hitting the ball. He hit a home run his first at-bat. Let's see what he's going to do.
5 hits in his first 10, 3 extra
5
base
hits in his first 10, yeah. And what's this kid going to do? Well, I mean,
nosedive.
Chances are, when Aaron Judge gets into the batter's box, he's going to strike out. He has 58 recorded at bats this season and 30 strikeouts, 6 walks. That's horrendous.
Yeah, 5 hits in his first 10 at bats. In his next 41 at bats, he had 5 more hits, down to a 196 average at the time. So yeah, he's not hitting, but he's striking out every game. His second game of his pro career, where he hit home run number 2, is the only game he has not had a K in. 24 strikeouts in 51 plate appearances, brother. 2.5 times more strikeouts than he has hits. And yeah, it's only 5 walks. So his on-base percentage is higher than his batting average by 80 points. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's just, and you had talked, dude, he does not pick up the baseball. His pitch recognition is horrendous right now, which the problem now that's happening, now he's pressing, trying to get something going, and now his plate discipline has gone down. So every single thing you can do as a hitter to make your career just go in the tank, he's doing. So while you and I know, and being more the umpire guy and the guy who sees pitching, I can look at the stats and tell you, hey, he's doing this. I can look at the pitch plot and say, okay, he's swinging at things he shouldn't be. But as a hitter, and this is the beauty of this show, because we're one of I think the only show that can give you almost every single facet of the game: pitching, hitting, running, umpiring, the whole 9 yards. It's the beauty of out of left field. It's why so much of our things seem to come out of left field. And you can find us on Twitter at OOLeftField. Email us, ooleftfield@gmail.com. Or, like a lot of our listeners have done, like us on Facebook, Out of Left Field, hosted by Graham and Chris. You can find us there, like our page. All of our shows are there, a lot of good stuff. We do a bunch of interaction with you guys. If you guys leave comments, always listen to the show because your comments just might make the show. So, Chris Furry, as a former player, as a very good former hitter, more so than here is Aaron Judge's problem, what does Aaron Judge do to fix the problems?
Well, the first thing he needs to do is he needs to get into the cage with and start learning to read pitches as they come out of the pitcher's hands. What I can see is going on right now, just like you said, is Aaron Judge isn't seeing the pitch. So he's guessing almost every time he swings the bat. And what you have going on is really what you have going on. Like, I equate this to like a guy who's playing a video game, right? Where you just swing at everything because you don't know how the hitting mechanics in the game work. You don't know how the indicators in the batter's box work. So you just swing at everything. And
guilty.
That's really what Aaron Judge is doing, right? He doesn't know what's going on. So he's just swinging the bat, hoping that he can make contact. And he's not. He's missing. He's being made. He's made to look like a fool. The guy's hitting 172 at the moment. So what he needs to do is he needs to work on hand-eye stuff, small ball stuff. Soft toss is great for that. He also needs to get in front of a live pitcher and learn to read pitches as they come off the fingers. Now, I get it. You have 40 milliseconds to read a pitch as it comes off the pitcher's fingers. But the fact of the matter is the majority of hitters in Major League Baseball can do that. The really great guys can do it every time.
How many guys we hear say, I can pick up, and it's crazy, but I can pick up the seams of the baseball.
Right.
As an umpire, I can to a point see the rotation. So,
right.
But how hard is that to actually? I mean, to me, can it be taught? Because to me, it's one of those things. If you can't do it, and
yes.
how do you begin to pick it up?
Okay, so it's not something that I can. It's not something that one person can divulge to another person. It's all about getting in front of it. And you've heard of a hitter losing his timing, right? He sits for a while or he doesn't play ball for a while, and you can't stop seeing 95, 96 mile an hour fastballs and then get into the batter's box and hit 95, 96. Your eyes aren't going to be there, right? You're not going to have the timing on the ball. You're not going to be able to see the ball. And that's really what Aaron Judge is having a problem with. He can't see the ball at all, except that he can't see the ball when it's off speed. He can't see the ball when it's a breaking ball. He can't see the ball when it's a fastball, which is really making me think, what is his eyesight like? The average eyesight for a hitter in Major League Baseball is actually 20/10. I don't know if you were aware of that.
So the average hitter has usually better than what your traditional perfect for 20/20 is.
Exactly. The average hitter has better than perfect vision, 2010, 2015 vision.
Well, I want to ask you one thing, because I know a pitching machine can be set to throw curveballs, like especially big league machines can be set. So as a hitter, could they say, hey, we're going to throw you this many curveballs and just let him begin to see what it, try to have him just pick up the spin and the seam? Or is it one of those things that because they're telling him ahead of time, is that going to be detrimental to him?
I mean, that could be a good place to start, learning to watch the rotation on a ball. But then you get into a place where, a sweeping curveball is going to spin similarly to a slider, but that slider is going to be coming at you probably 6-7 miles an hour faster. So now you're hurting him because now you want him to watch rotation, and he's watching rotation. He's watching the seams. Now the seams are going to be different on a slider and a curveball.
Right.
But the spin is going to look similar. And for guys like Aroldis Chapman, who hardly ever throws a slider, right? But he throws a really hard fastball, almost never throws a curveball. But when he does throw that slider, it has that sideways spin on it that you see on sweeping.
I'm going to bring up a guy that you're familiar with, and I think of it more because it ended the World Series with Sergio Romo, where a slider was his money pitch, and he froze.
Well, it was his only pitch.
But he freezes the best hitter in the game, Miguel Cabrera, on strike three on a fastball in the inside corner to end the series and sweep the Tigers.
Right.
So
and
I guess the issue that he has here now is that you need him to pick up spin, but you don't want to slow down bat speed or his ability,
right.
Because if he's waiting to see, now that extra tenth of a second puts him well behind the ball, and he's either going to roll over it for a ground out to his pull field, or if he's lucky he fouls it off, or he's just going to miss completely.
Right. Especially, I mean, a hitter generally only has 0.4 of a second from the time that the pitch leaves the pitcher's hand to the time that the pitch impacts the catcher's glove.
Scientifically, they have to actually begin their swing before the ball leaves the hand. It's the studies
right,
I've seen,
and that's where you see the coil and that start of the leg kick when the pitcher starts his rotation is because they have to.
That's why check swings become such an important part of the game.
Right, and check swings, a hitter only has 0.1 of a second to decide if he's going to stop his swing until the momentum becomes too much that the wrists break and it becomes a swing. So all of this stuff has to happen. It can't be a thought process. You can't look at the pitcher's fingers and go, oh, I think this is going to be a curveball, because by the time that thought gets through your head, the ball's in the catcher's glove already. So this has to be something that he can see and react to almost like muscle memory.
Right.
I mean, this has to be an almost subconscious decision. So this is something that, yes, look at learning to pick up spin and ball position and where the ball is coming from and heading to is going to be good for him. It's good for everyone. It improves anyone's hitting. But what Aaron Judge really needs to do is he needs to get in a cage with a live person and watch these pitches come off fingertips, because that's where he needs to see the ball. Because the first time that a hitter can see the ball is when the ball is leaving the fingertip of the pitcher. That's the first time he can get an idea of what this guy's going to throw him. And if he can learn to judge based on where the fingers are on the ball, where the seams are, what the arm speed looks like, which is why changeups are so effective, right? Because the arm speed and the finger position doesn't really change, except you may add more contact to the surface of the ball to slow the ball down. Other than that, it looks just like a fastball. Right. It's why if you guys ever look at a circle change when they slow mo it, and a circle change really has kind of started to come back a little bit because of that bite, but it's basically your middle finger, your ring finger, and your pinky around the ball, and the reason they call it a circle change is that you're making that A-OK signal with you're touching your index finger to your thumb, so your whole hand is almost in contact with the ball, so that circle gives a little bit of that side spin that kind of darts it almost like a two-seam fastball, kind of brings it down and away or down in depending on who you're throwing to, but it's the same arm speed as your fastball. It just has less velocity because you have much more contact. You're not getting that spin off the seams like you would, with just your, just your two fingertips pretty much hit a snap of the wrist. Right, and it looks a lot like a two-seam fastball coming off the hand. and it's an effective pitch. And you want to go back to Sergio Romo. Sergio Romo's slider, the arm speed and the arm position where he delivers the ball with that slider looks so much like his fastball that's why that slider is so effective for him. And it's a little unique.
It makes the knuckleballer so good if they can master that skill.
Right. If they can eliminate spin completely. I don't think there's a catcher in the league who's ever caught a knuckleballer that didn't hate knuckleballs because it makes catchers look stupid.
Oh yeah, but at the same
it
time,
bounces all over the place.
Well, and you know this, the Department of Defense has there's a military all-star team actually for baseball that's put together every year, and we talked about this a couple months ago, and they played over here. I had a great chance to officiate one of their games, and there was a kid who has the best knuckleball ever seen. Because not only can he throw a knuckleball and make that thing dance, his fastball, he can dot a spot and make it 20 to 30 miles an hour faster. And the big thing for him is he will keep the same slow motion of his arm speed coming up, and when he has that ball right about at his shoulder, can fling his arm. So as a hitter, as an Aaron Judge hitter, you can't prep for that. So if you have to expect the knuckleball. So unless you just happen to see it and get a good swing off, you're already behind because you're waiting for something 60 miles an hour. All of a sudden, he's unleashed an 85-mile-an-hour fastball with command. It's a kid I think we're going to see in the minors and potentially in the bigs. He was drafted years ago in his career and enlisted. But, dude, it's important, and that's where it really makes the hitters a life hell because you can't prep for those two things.
Right. Another thing I've noticed about Judge is he has a problem with being able to change his eye level, which is something that is important. Now, this is a conversation I just had the other day. When you go to the plate as a hitter against any pitcher, you have a pitch in mind that you're going to sit on, that you're going to look at, because sometimes a guy will have a curveball or a slider that's really hitting for him, and you're not going to hit that pitch, right? So you're just going to go up there and you're going to say, okay, well, if he throws me a fastball, I'm going to swing at it. Or maybe he has a curveball that's been hanging a little bit, and so you're waiting on the breaking ball. And you're like, all right, well, he's going to throw me a curveball, and if he throws me a curveball, I'm going to swing at it. So you go up there and you look for that pitch, and when you get it, you turn on it. Hopefully you can put good wood on it and put the ball in play.
Isn't this something that when you and I had talked privately that you thought A-Rod had an issue with as well as he was getting longer in his career, that he was becoming more of a guy who was kind of guessing and waiting for a pitch, and if he didn't get it, then he just basically was a waste of an at-bat. That's why he dropped so low in the tail end of this season?
Right, exactly. And it's actually something you kind of see, unfortunately, often with some hitters as they get older. The eye starts to go. They have to guess a little more. Now, some older hitters guess a little better than others, or they have better plate discipline than others. Alex Rodriguez, in addition to the fact that he was kind of guessing at pitches, he also lost some of his plate discipline, and I think that had to do with a frustration that he felt at the expectations that were being put on him by Yankees fans after Jeter retired, that he was going to be, the leader of that team now. It was his team. He needed to step up, and he wasn't hitting the ball as well. He wasn't seeing the ball as well. And I think he started guessing more, losing a little plate discipline because he was frustrated, which is understandable. Hitters get frustrated. I've been immensely frustrated. I've swung at things that, man, I used to get mad if I was having a bad game or a bad streak, and I would swing at those letter high or higher fastballs that pitchers like to throw to change a hitter's eye level.
Try to tomahawk it.
Right, and I would swing at him, and I would swing under him, of course, because, or I would swing over them trying to gauge too high, and I would hit these little dribblers, or I'd swing under them and miss them completely. But that's one of the problems that the Judge is having. Pitchers throw those high fastballs so that they can set up that low and away or low and in pitch, because when you're thinking high, you're not seeing low. And when you're thinking low, you're not seeing high. And what they want to do is they want to mix up that high-low so that you're not expecting the ball to go to a certain place. Because if you're thinking low and out and the pitcher throws low and out, then you're going to swing low and out and you're going to put the bat on the ball, right? So if you're thinking, because he's thrown 3 low pitches in a row, if you're thinking low and he throws a belt high or higher outside curveball or slider, you're going to miss that pitch because you're not looking belt high or higher. You're looking belt or lower, because that's where you want that pitch to be, because that's the pitch you've seen for the last 2 or 3 pitches.
Right.
And Aaron Judge is having a problem making that adjustment. Now, the good hitters in the game can make that adjustment on a pitch-to-pitch basis. Aaron Judge can't. And, like the graph you just sent me, I mean, it's just he's swinging at things that are just nowhere near.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are not just out of the zone. I mean, these are balls that look like they're bouncing in front of home plate some of the time, right? I mean, these are sliders and curveballs that are that would have hit left-handed hitters. I mean, he struck out 30 times. 11 games that he's played in out of the 18 games that he's played have been multiple strikeout games. He struck out 3 times in 2 games. There's a lot of things that Aaron Judge needs to do to be a better hitter, but the first thing that he needs to do is he needs to get out of his own head.
Exactly.
Aaron?
And I mean, it's, you look, and I showed you this as well, the plot of just the strikes that he's taking. I mean, he's taking balls down the pipe, middle in. I mean, baseball, as a right-handed batter, you should be turning on and sending, out of Yankee Stadium or hitting it, deep into that park. And, I'm with you, man. This is how rough it is for him. He's whiffing on 38%, he's whiffing on change-ups 38% of the time, a cut fastball 25% of the time, sliders 20%, and curveballs 14%. So if it has movement of any kind, if it's off speed, if it isn't straight heat, he's not picking it up. And while you can say, yeah, but it's big league pitching, this is a trend that continued from AAA on up. And I asked J.W. Gravely of 27 Ounce Baseball, who's on with us for our Grade the Trade special a couple of weeks ago, is this going to continue being, is this going to be an issue? Is he going to be a strikeout concern? And J.W. says, yeah, most likely. He wants them with the Pulaski Yankees. He's seen these trends. He's seen him play. Said, yeah, the kid got popped, but you're probably going to see that. And they're throwing him down and in, way down and in, and he's offering. So, it's concerning, like we said, that he's letting the good stuff go by, but then he's offering it the really, really bad stuff. And I think pitchers are starting to get that, hey, if we throw him one good and he doesn't take it, he's upset, and he wants to take advantage of that next pitch. So why in the world are you going to throw him anything remotely close? Throw him a junk ball, and more often than not, they're going to get an offer. You get a catcher, you put one in the dirt, you tag him out, and then, hey, there's your drop third strike. You have a nice day. We'll see you back in a couple of innings.
From what Aaron Judge has been swinging at, maybe Aaron Judge needs to switch to golf.
It's they always want to yell at the umpire. It's not golf, or I've heard stories, never happened to me, but a manager thought it would be funny to send his player up there with a 9-iron to the box. And as you can imagine, said player and said coach were offered the ability to exit the game. If you want to chirp is one thing, but good laugh, but you're still going to get tossed. But a 688 OPS, it's an OPS, man. So we're looking at his on-base plus slugging under 700, a 0.1 WAR. His future, to me, is not bright in the big leagues because I mentioned with Gary Sanchez, guys like Jeff Francoeur, and we said that Sanchez has a pretty good ability to pick up the ball. He's recognizing pitches. We know that he's disciplined at the dish. Jeff Francoeur still struggled, but the difference with him is that Francoeur had very good defensive abilities. He has a great arm, and we've seen it with Kansas City. We've seen it with other teams where, the Marlins picked him up as an addition for their outfield. That if you try and go on him, he can gun you down. He's a good clubhouse guy. He backs your guys up. He's fiery when he has to be, but at least he could provide you something. Right now, Aaron Judge is providing nothing. I mean, like we said, a zero, right now he's at a negative 0.2 WAR, and that's just offensively. And in right field, same thing. He's at a negative 0.1. He's at 21 total chances. So anything hit his way, 21 total chances, 18 putouts, 2 assists. But he already has an error in the outfield. He's got a 9.52 fielding percentage in right field, Chris. Those guys should be in the 9.9s. Seeing a guy go below 9.8, really? A 9.5? Yeah. I don't see him. I'm sure that New York is going to leave him up, in the bigs for the remainder of the year. I'm sure he'll get a camp invite going into next season. But I would be very surprised if they don't see any type of improvement this offseason if he isn't back down in AAA for the beginning of the 2017 season. They have plenty of rookies. They've had a lot of good players that have come through with their trades. They've got a lot of pieces that they can move. As of right now, Aaron Judge is most definitely not going to be holding court for, pun intended, in New York in the near future, in my opinion.
Right. No, I completely agree. I think that Aaron Judge has a lot of things that he needs to take care of, and the number one thing that Aaron Judge has to take care of right now is what's going on in Aaron Judge's head. He's just, I think he feels like he has to get on base, which he does. He's a Major League Baseball player. That's his job, right? He needs to hit the ball. He needs to get on base. But I feel like that he is so concerned with the fact that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, that every time he does finally get to the plate, he's so far inside of his own head that he can't get out of his own way. And we've seen this before. This happens with guys. Guys go into slumps. They start, thinking
Bryce
about
Harper this year. Let's look at Bryce Harper from his start of the season to what's happened basically through the last 4 or 5 months. And I know you've been on record, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this in the coming weeks and in the off season. But everyone is counting Bryce Harper as a potential $500 million player, and right now his numbers, aside from his MVP year last year, are not $500 million worth of contract.
Right. No. And, that's the number everybody keeps wanting to put on him, $500 million. $500 million for Bryce Harper. Not with a 230 average, not with one breakout season in his life. The guy had a great MVP season, but every MVP season is great. He didn't have any better of an MVP season than any of the other MVPs that have been made league MVP in the last 5 or 6 years.
Whichever team wants to pay him that money, I also want them to sign Yasiel Puig and Aaron Judge and have that be their outfield and find out what their team payroll comes out to and what their record comes out to.
Right.
Because you're looking to catch lightning in the bottle, and lightning in the bottle is great for a couple of months for a playoff push. it is not great for a multi-year, decade-long contract.
No, definitely not. And I don't think Aaron Judge is going to get one of those contracts anytime in the near future. He's just a liability at the plate. Bottom line is he's a liability at the plate. And he's not going to make Rookie of the Year, obviously. And I don't think that Gary Sanchez is either. But we do have to discuss Rookie of the Year, and we are going to discuss that as soon as we get back from a short break, and we will tell you who we think is going to be the American League and National League Rookies of the Year. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
Hey guys, Graham here again from Out of Left Field. Football season has finally kicked off. College football had its first weekend, and 2 top 5 teams went down. Check out thegruelingtruth.net to get all of your information on what's going to happen with your college football team, plus NFL previews. We have a Bengals weekly show as well as the 49ers. Are the Patriots dynasty going to be over? And Colin Kaepernick sitting down for the national anthem. All that plus boxing coverage, Canadian football, and, of course, Out of Left Field. Check them out at thegruelingtruth.net, at Grueling Truth on Twitter, or Grueling Truth on Facebook. The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. Hey, guys, and welcome back to Out of Left Field. Appreciate you hanging with us. So 3 topics down, man. We've got 1 ball hit out of the park. We've got a strikeout. I think Puig might have made it to first. And we'll give it a drop third strike to Judge. So let's say we got Puig in scoring position. So now, cleanup hitters in the box. And the cleanup topic for today, like you said, Rookie of the Year. So I want to start off with, I had the American League set, but why don't we just go ahead and get this one out of the way? The National League Rookie of the Year is going to be Corey Seager. Moving on.
Seager.
Okay, no. Guys, I mean, I think for those of you that have been watching, to be fair, Corey Seager is the only rookie that's really in the National League who has made a big enough splash and is still currently playing and not injured that probably garners that award. Unfortunately, guys like Trevor Story, who exploded the first 2 months of his season in Colorado and stayed consistent, went out with a thumb injury, and shortstop Aledmus Diaz of the Cardinals, also with a thumb, has been out for almost the entire month. I mean, I want to break this down for our listeners first, okay? Corey Seager played 27 games last season. So if he played 27 games last year, then how can he still be considered Rookie of the Year, okay? The Baseball Writers Association of America defines the standard for Rookie of the Year as follows. If they played the previous season, they have to have had either less than 130 at-bats, 50 innings pitched, or less than 45 days on an active MLB roster. Okay, so Corey Seager had less than 130 at-bats. He was only up for 27 games, so he still qualifies. He's in 315, 23 long balls, and 62 steaks. All right, RBIs, ribeyes, whatever way you want to call it. He's driven in 62. A 907 OPS and a 5.4 wins above replacement, which, I mean, for anybody is a fantastic number. For a rookie is otherworldly right now. 37 doubles, 3 triples. So he's got good speed with an open field. He's 1 for 4 on steals, though. So, you know, his dead stop to second hasn't been the best. I'm sure it'll improve. But his plate is something that has me excited. And as much as we've talked about Aaron Judge and how to get better, Seager's played in 129 games this season, 105 strikeouts. But he's got 47 walks to go along with it. So we know he's seeing the ball well. You're going to strike out, and it's a little bit less than 1 per game. But at least for every strikeout, or for every 2, he's getting the free pass along with it. So he's still seeing the ball well, and, you know, as much as we're seeing a guy who has power hitting 23 out, but still with an above 300 batting average. So we're seeing the good stuff. We're seeing, a really nice ability to get on base, plus a nice, ability to put the ball over the fence when necessary.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you and I both kind of jumped into this thing and said that Corey Seager is absolutely going to be the National League Rookie of the Year. Before we even got on, before we even started talking, really, it didn't even become a discussion. I said, who do you have for National League? And why is it Corey Seager? And you were like, because it's Corey Seager. That's basically how the conversation is going to go, I think. That's basically how the conversation is going to go, I think, after this season ends. But let's not take away from some other guys who are doing really well in the National League.
And to be fair, I think Trevor Story. I think Trevor Story would have challenged him for this had he stayed healthy.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that we get Story in the outfield and Diaz in shortstop, and now a guy who's playing in the middle of the field, one of the toughest spots, is having one of the best rookie years at short we've seen. I'd say almost maybe Rafael Furcal when he came up with the Braves. But tell me who else besides Diaz and Story. Tell me who else that you think would have been a fair, at least a fair, would have had fair consideration for the award.
Hitter wise, I don't think there's really anybody. Now, I am going to be keeping track of a kid named David Dahl who plays for Colorado, who's played in 37 games, has 144 at bats, and is hitting .333 with a .911 OPS. And has 37 strikeouts and 10 walks, which is not a great strikeout to walk ratio, but it's pretty good. And he's hit 5 home runs. I think that he's going to be a good player going forward for Colorado, especially in what I like to call the post-Tulowitzki Colorado era. But that's a conversation for another time. But there are pitchers in the National League who have garnered some attention as rookies, right? There's guys like Maeda, who plays for the Dodgers also, who has 26 starts, 13-8. He's 13-8 on the season, has an ERA of 3.37, has 150 strikeouts.
Probably a good reason why the Dodgers are sitting on top of that division right now with Kershaw being out. I mean, he's been a workhorse for them.
Exactly.
Along with Urias.
Right, exactly. And like you said, Urias, who's 5-2 in 15 games, 13 starts with a 3.69 ERA. But there's guys like Matz in New York. He plays for the Mets, who hasn't had as good of a season. But he's 9-8 in 22 starts, and he has 129 strikeouts. I mean, the guy's striking guys out. There's pitchers who could make a run at Rookie of the Year, especially Maeda, who really aren't going to get the opportunity, I think, just because Corey Seager has blown up the National League and especially the National League West.
And the difficulty there as well is Seager is getting all this attention, and he plays on the same team as Maeda and Urias. So guys are going to be so focused here, it's kind of hard to see the forest through the trees almost at that point.
Right. So I think there's no doubt that at this point that Seager has Rookie of the Year locked up in the National League, but I want to give at least the other two guys their due
before we move to the AL, because the AL is going to be a great race.
Sure.
The one thing I have concern with Seager a little bit, he's got 14 errors this year at shortstop and 485 total chances. It's a .971 fielding percentage, and that may seem a low number, but for a position that has him moving in every direction and making acrobatic attempts to throw out runners, it's kind of on par with other players. and he's a young kid. I think that he has the pedigree right now, obviously, to play the position very well. He's going to learn when to hold on to the ball, but that gunslinger mentality is still something that you want a shortstop to have. Yes, it may cost you something here and there, but usually more often than not, that crazy throw, that acrobatic leap, that one leg jump turn that Derek Jeter has made famous. It'll get you more outs, and it's going to get you runners on base or an error. We had Trevor Story ended this season with a 272 average, 27 runs batted in. 27 long balls and 72 driven in. Elimas Diaz has played 96 games. He had a 312 average, 14 homers, 57 driven in, an OPS of 894 and a 3.2 WAR. So, again, just like Seager, good plate discipline. He's walked 34 times and struck out 54. And Diaz is 3 for 7 in stolen base attempts. So, it really had Story was going to be the power guy of this rookie class, no doubt. But Diaz and Seager, had Diaz really stayed healthy, because you and I agree that Diaz probably could have started the All-Star game for the National League. I think that Trevor Story should have made the All-Star game. That's another reason why we said that the All-Star game shouldn't count, which, guys, if you want to hear our All-Star game ideas for change, our ideas of how to change the game, which Rob Manfred actually agreed with one of our ideas that we spoke with Buster Olney about. Check us out at OO Left Field on Twitter and Out of Left Field, posted by Graham and Chris on Facebook. But like you said, Battle, the American League is going to be – that's going to be the fun one. A bunch of guys that are looking strong. I know that you mentioned Hyun-Soo Kim with the Orioles. We've talked about Gary Sanchez, although I think it's highly unlikely. I've seen guys like Tyler Naquin of the Cleveland Indians, and even a pitcher, again, like you mentioned with Maeda and Urias, with Michael Fulmer of the Tigers. Mm-hmm. So you tell me, out of the top 2 or 3, who do you have on your list out of top 2 or 3 guys that you think would make Rookie of the Year?
I have a couple of guys. Aaron Judge is up there, but he'll probably strike out.
Yeah, I think that's a strikeout of a pick right there, Chris.
No,
kind of like your Mariners pick for the wild card.
Wow. Look, man, I like the Mariners. I'd like to see them pull out of this little nosedive that they've gotten themselves into and actually make that wild card slot. But they're 5 games back, so it's probably not going to happen. No, I have a couple of guys. I think that when you look at the list of guys who could possibly make Rookie of the Year, looking at Fulmer tells me that he is on top of that list. The guy's made 22 starts. He's 10-6. He struck out 112. He has almost 10 more strikeouts than the next rookie pitcher. And the next rookie pitcher is Manaea in Oakland, who has 104 and has a 4.4 ERA, who's 5-9 in 20 starts.
And Paul was a power pitcher too. He was kind of touted as the next coming, a new young Justin Verlander, and we're seeing ERA strike. We're seeing a lot of numbers that are Verlander-esque, and I think it's a good reason why the Tigers are making, a case they could make the second wild card.
Yeah, no, and I think they could, and I think that Fulmer is going to be one of those guys who could possibly get him there. So he's definitely at the top of my list. The next couple of guys for me are going to be Kim from Baltimore, who hits really well, plays outfield really well, has a pretty strong arm. But he's only played 76 games, so not quite half a season. He'll be at just over half a season by the time the season ends. But he's hitting .310 with an 805 OPS. He's got difference maker kind of numbers. He's got numbers who add pop that isn't Manny Machado. If you see where I'm going with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the big bats have been Manny and Trumbo and a little bit of Chris Davis, but he's kind of silently pushing that offense forward when they need it.
Exactly. The next guy I think is going to be Naquin from Cleveland, who's played just over half a season, is hitting .307. He'll be over 100 games played by the end of the season. He has an OPS of 938. Where I see a problem for him is that his strikeout to walk ratio is a little weak.
Yeah,
he has 92 strikeouts.
of his ABs. Yeah, 35% of his ABs are ending in a K. That's not good.
Yeah, he has 92 strikeouts on 24 walks in just over 260 at bats, which is a little rough.
Yeah, he's played in 93 of Cleveland 132 games, at least when I put this together. It was a couple of days ago when we were prepping for the show, and obviously scheduling kind of got it in the way a little bit. But I'm with you on Naquin. 14 dingers, 39 driven in. Solid OPS. His defense has not been good, though. And to me, if you're going to give Rookie of the Year, look at everything.
Right, exactly.
4 games that he's played in right field, he had 1 total chance, and it was an error. Majority of his time has been in center. He's got a .993 fielding percentage. He's made an error in center, but his defensive WAR is negative 1.4. Yes,
right.
Negative 1.4.
Right.
So basically, for every game that he's in center field, they're losing. It's a loss instead of a win. Almost is the way to look at it. He needs to shore up his defense. His power is good. I mean, power guys are going to strike out. It's just kind of the way baseball goes. Now, I want to go ahead and set the record straight because you and I have had some pretty good battles thus far on out of left field. And I enjoy them because I like telling you when you're wrong.
Sure.
And every now and then,
I like you to be wrong about when I'm wrong.
And every now and then, I can be wrong too. But I want to go ahead and spell this out. When you and I prepped for this show, you told me that Hyun-Soo Kim was your pick for Rookie of the Year. Christopher Furry, who was my pick for Rookie of the Year?
Fulmer.
Okay.
And I agree.
But now your pick is Fulmer. So am I going to get credit for that, or are you just going to take it and quietly just kind of, scurry off somewhere?
No, I agree. I agree that your pick, Fulmer, is the correct pick at Rookie of the Year. And now you're going to have to excuse me a little bit on this because some of this has to do with my own personal bias, which is something that I'm going to have to deal with myself. This is how critical thinking works, right? You have to recognize your biases and be able to remove those from the conversation. And I try to do that as much as I can, but I am a little bit biased when it comes to postseason accolades because it seems like it's more often than not guys who are in the box, not guys who are on the mound, who make the most difference in these games, which is why it's hard for me to see a guy like Justin Verlander win MVP. Right? It's hard for me to see a guy like Clayton Kershaw win MVP. Why? Because yes, they make a huge difference.
Because Kershaw plays for the Dodgers. That's why. Let's be honest. Let's be honest, Homer. It's because Kershaw plays for the Dodgers.
It has nothing to do with him playing for the Dodgers. It's because they might play in 30 games.
Right.
Maybe. And in my opinion, even if you win single-handedly all 30 of those games, there's still 132 other games that you had no part in, that team had to win without you.
Right.
So, in my opinion, it's hard to look at a pitcher and say he's the most valuable player on that entire team, and he only played you know, what, 5% of the season.
The ironic thing is, though, that you could look at Bumgarner or Cueto, more so Bumgarner this year, and say that because Bumgarner has – now, granted, he has done both, you know, well in the box and on the bump, but
Sure.
a lot of games he's winning have been 1-2 run games. We've seen him take a win because he hit the only he drove in the only run of the game to support himself.
Right.
But yes, I'm with you. You're with me. All right. Yes,
I'm
think
with you.
Michael Fulmer.
I think Fulmer is one of those impactful players.
Yeah,
one of those. Don't get me wrong. Justin Verlander earned that MVP title. Every single bit of it.
But then look also how quickly his, as a pitcher, how quickly things can change and how far he dropped for a couple of years.
But I think that the National League MVPs for the last 4 years have all been, with the exception of the 1 year when a pitcher won, which was last year. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on it right now. Give me just a half a second to look that up. But I think that with the exception of the very rare occasion when a pitcher
are you asking about who won MVP last year?
Yeah, who won MVP last year?
Bryce Harper won it for the National League.
Oh, that's right. Bryce Harper. It was the season previous to that.
I'll look it up anyway. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's hard. It's hard to. Kershaw wins it in 2014, and I think the difference is you're looking at guys who are. You're looking at, especially more so for MVP, you're looking at guys who are massively dominant in their position. It's kind of why it's I believe Buster has won MVP. You see a guy who's behind the dish, and to me, winning the MVP as a catcher is probably the greatest accolade because you have the most, the biggest fingerprint on the game. You control everything. You are the general of that defense, positioning, controlling the pitches. Everything. As much as a pitcher has to deal with something every pitch, as a catcher, you control. Hey, this is what I want you to pitch. Okay, well, let's put it here. And everything is your reading of of your defense, what the offense has done so far for the opposing team, where they're going to hit. But Fulmer is right at about a 2.7 ERA. His 4.6 wins above replacement is fantastic as a pitcher. And he's got a 1 whip. So, 1 walk or hit per inning pitched. He's allowing just roughly 1 homer every 10 innings. So less than 1 home run per game, and he strikes out just over 3 batters for every 1 walk that he allows. His control of the strike zone is great. He's averaging less than 4 pitches per batter he faces and just over 15 pitches per inning. I'd like to see him lower the pitches per inning, maybe 11 or 12, because right now he's sitting, I think we said, about 6 1/3 innings pitched, and 7 is what qualifies you for a quality start. So if he can drop down 2 or 3 pitches per inning, that should push him deeper into that 7th inning spot. And that will help the Tigers less bullpen use and more power from him. But we've seen the Tigers go from everybody was jumping each other beginning of the year in the Central. The Indians were supposed to run away, and on that slide they've been on, Fulmer and those Tigers have slowly been putting themselves in position more so now for a wild card than I think they're going to be able to make a run at the Central. But, if we see the AL East finally have some separation, which right now there is not a lick of separation. The Sox and the Jays are tied for the AL East lead. It's looking like we're going to have 3 AL East teams in. But the Tigers, and granted, I know I picked them as, our final pick, and the Astros were knocking on the door as well. But Fulmer is a big reason with that pitching staff as to why they may have a legitimate chance at sniffing the postseason.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that as much as you want to put the emphasis on guys who make a difference sort of on a daily basis, which is where my bias was, right? I was looking at hitters, guys who go out every day and make a difference. I think you can't discount the ability of a pitcher to really make a difference on a team, and that's really what Fulmer's done as a rookie.
Yeah, because there is something that it does something for that team when you walk out there and you can, if you're Joe Panic or you're Hunter Pence or you're Denard Span and you look and you see the name Bumgarner on that hill, it's okay. I'm pretty confident today that as long as we can just do our job, we're good.
Right.
It does something for that team, and I think that Michael Fulmer, the hardest thing for him has been was the amount of discussion that was around him, and he hasn't let it affect his play. He's done his job, and he's done his job very, very well. And, because of that right now, Detroit sits one game out of the wild card. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Like we said, it's just going to be a matter of, at this point, if Detroit can keep winning and we look at their strength of, their schedule, and it's not the hardest schedule, there's a possibility just because of how tight the AL East is, Detroit could potentially pass Baltimore. And
yeah, it's possible.
Just jump in based off of record, not because you're going to have three teams that are going to just bash each other's brains out in the East.
No, I agree. And I kind of feel like I have to say this a little bit. My bias about hitters being the difference makers is not just my bias. This is a bias that Major League Baseball shares with me. Since we were talking about MVP and guys winning MVP and how often pitchers win MVP, the MVP award was introduced into Major League Baseball in 1911. The first two MVPs in Major League Baseball were Ty Cobb and Frank Schulte in 1911. Since that time, 25 pitchers have been named MVP total, both American and National League, since 1911. 25.
Hey, you know what? Pitchers would tell you, like the Yankees, that makes them a dynasty.
Well, and to be fair, if a dynasty is 3 wins in a single decade, then American League pitchers have an argument, because Hal Newhouser won it twice, 1944 and 1945, and Spud Chandler won it in 1943. So that makes 3 American League MVPs in a row were pitchers in the 1940s.
That kind of stat right there is the stuff that comes to you straight out of left field. Guys, thank you guys for tuning in. We always appreciate you guys being here with us, supporting us. Again, please check out our Facebook page, Out of Left Field, hosted by Graham and Chris. Like it. We want the interaction. You've heard us put comments and stuff up there. We have different things that we want your help for with the show. And hey, you guys ever have something going on in baseball, maybe with your team, something that you want to hear talked about? Let us know. If you guys are umpires, let me know. Okay, I always like to bring up something because it's not a side of the game that gets talked about, but it's a side of the game that's very, very important. And a side that I think is even more important, Chris. I know you've begun to kind of have more of an affinity for and a respect for, because you and I would talk and, I could make sense of certain oddities that would happen in the game, but it is a really cool way to see the game.
Right.
So at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field on Facebook, ooleftfield@gmail.com.
And let's not forget that if you feel like you need to express your commonality with me, either in my crack predictions or just in telling Graham that he's wrong, you can also get us on Facebook. Just look for Out of Left Field, hosted by Graham and Chris, and like the page and comment.
And just a reminder, Chris, that your Mariners are most likely completely out of the playoff picture. and that Michael Fulmer was my pick. So just kind of throwing that out there.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
That is very true. A blind squirrel finds an acorn at least every now and again. Guys, again, I appreciate you joining us. We're back next week. We got some big news for you in the upcoming weeks. A big special guest going to be coming on the show in the next couple of weeks. We're very excited about that. For those of you who are umpiring as well, Gary Darling, who is a former Major League umpire and the president of the Umps Care charity, will be joining us here in the next probably month or so. And the plan is to have Jim Kirk of umpatire.com joining us, as well as some of the new gear, things coming out, and ways that a lot of you younger umpires can stay safe and learn things. And if you're ever thinking about becoming an umpire, like Chris, I know we've talked about stuff there as well. So it may seem,
I'm tempted to go over to the dark side.
Hey, it's a light side, man. We're never wrong. You know what? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We're always right.
Spoken like a true said.
There you go. The beauty of this show, the beauty of baseball, is that every now and then you never know when something is going to hit you and come straight out of left field next week.